part of the reason I wanted to have you specifically on the show is, if I had Jimmy Akin or Trent Horn on the show to discuss why Catholics can't reject the Second Vatican Council, there'd be a lot of people who have like trad leanings who'd be like, well, of course they would say that they're Catholic answers. Whereas I feel like you are uniquely hated by both sides of the church for some reason. You have people who consider you trad, and then you, I guess, had some falling out recently or over the last few years with people in more traditionalist Catholic circles. I know there was something that happened with you and Taylor Marshall. I didn't follow that closely. Do you want to maybe talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, historiographically, it's relevant. It would seem to be. One, I should say, I'm writing a book on the Second Vatican Council, and most specifically, the hermeneutic of continuity. It was one of these books I started out writing to prove an not opposite, but at glancing blows, a differently placed thesis than what the research turned up. I was more anti-Vatican II when I was contracted by Tan Books to write this book. I was more vaguely anti-Vatican II when I began on TNT, which let's face it, that's Taylor and Tim. That was a sensation. It was a rebranding moment for Taylor Marshall, where he went kind of from well-respected, somewhat known, normie Protestant convert guy, but somewhat vanilla. He defended Pope Francis very publicly, to kind of Catholic bad boy. And I went from being, from the people that knew me, more known as a conservative thinker who also was Catholic, to the opposite, a Catholic thinker first. And we were both kind of Catholic bad boys, and it was an exciting time because we were taking on Summer of Shame, McCarrick, to some extent, in unspoken ways, the pontificate of Francis. But with that rebrand, what's happening during TNT and after is we're taking it different places. Taylor and I were just business partners. Mm-hmm. We didn't know each other going into it. But as we kind of researched for what became Infiltration, we were originally going to write that book together, and then we kind of split it off. We were each going to do our own version of Infiltration. I'm still working on mine. It's one of my 3 books I'm working on. I was turning up different research that didn't square with the narrative that I'd been hearing in traditionalist circles. And, most of my following is still a kind of traditionalist. They're just an open-minded kind. Quite simply, there are things, one-liners that are trotted out among traditionalism that are flat wrong. One of them being that Vatican II was the only pastoral ecumenical council. It was sui generis, and this really sticks out when 20 of 21 ecumenical councils, according to the misnomer, are all dogmatic, all of them except for Vatican II. Why would that be? No, there are like 3 or 4 other ones, medieval councils, that did not pronounce or define dogmatically. That was a head scratcher moment for me. They will typically cite this quotation by Pope Paul VI on January the 12th, 1966, without citing the rest of it. They will say, the council has invested its teachings with the authority of the supreme ordinary magisterium, which ordinary magisterium is so obviously authentic that it must be accepted with docility and sincerity by all the faithful, according to the mind of the council is expressed in the nature and the aims of individual documents. Actually, that's what the part they won't read. They'll always read a part where Pope Paul says, I'm not going to declare something dogmatically. And then he reads that. Let me just go right to one of the favorite trad talking points, the syllabus of errors, promulgated by Pope Pius IX. They love it because he's saying, I love it too. We're not always distinguishable, me and the trads. I love the syllabus of errors.
Can you just pause and explain what you mean by trads? Because I'm sure to some people that's like a disparaging term, and like me, I'm like, I guess I'm a trad. So what do you mean when you say trad?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because no one knows. I mean, you and I are traditionalists because we love the Latin Mass. I mean, this is the one aspect of Vatican II that is, I think, in a full, unadulterated way, the way that most traditionalists describe it. It's okay, we probably need to return to the Latin Mass. Not that that's my job. It's the other documents in Vatican II that people who call themselves traditionalists say fell into some level more or less formal, of doctrinal error. And that's what I've researched as just false. There is no doctrinal error in the other documents of Vatican II. So broadly speaking, I guess you and I are trads. Maybe I'm considered a little traddier than you, but you love the Latin Mass too, and want to go back to traditions. Mm-hmm. More acutely speaking, it just means that it has designations for whether or not you accept either the validity of or the realistic plausibility of the practicability of the creatures of Vatican II and its documents. That's a more acute definition.
Thank you for watching this clip. You can click here to watch the full episode. And I want to say a big thanks to our sponsors and to our amazing patrons for making all of this possible. Please do us a favor before you go. Click that subscribe button and then the bell. And that way YouTube will be forced to let you know every time we put out a new episode.